Go on.
Persona 3 Reload is out, and as expected, it's good. I haven't really played the original or Fez or Portable, because why would I play Portable? And I don't know that much about them. Pretty much everything I know about them are summed up in these two videos I made, which adds up to about 1% of everything there is to actually know. So going in, I didn't have any specific expectations for anything to stay the same or change, because how could I? Overall, I was just expecting Persona 5, but in a new environment, new music, and new characters, which is what I got. And in many ways, this game is much better than Persona 5, which so happens to be my favorite JRPG. I know I'm not original at all. I'm only like 10 hours in as of writing this script, so keep that in mind. This is more of like a first impressions.
A shadow in the middle of town. It managed to take over public transportation. I should investigate whether this means it's finally begun. The monorail. I bet this subject would make a good one-liner.
Okay, that one was alright. That was a good one.
That was an ingenious move. Always be prepared for heavy lifting during a mission. Because shadows...
Get this man off the fucking mic. Jesus Christ. I had talked in a previous video about what I knew of the story in Persona 3, and theorized that given the tone of what I'd seen, this would likely be my favorite Persona. And that's proving to be true so far. The TLDR for Persona 3 is there's actually more than 24 hours in a day. When the clock strikes 12, time stops and the dark hour sweeps over the town. During this time, only Persona users and people with Persona potential can roam around. Everyone else is held stationary in these coffins with no memory of the dark hour even existing. So in comes the protagonist, we're off to save the world and live a double life as a student, yada yada, it's Persona. I like this premise because it's dark and gritty, but it's not like in a cringe way like Persona 5. Because even though I love that game, it gets pretty cringe.
Have you gained some weight?
Persona 3 is more grounded. It's a lot more mature than both 4 and 5, and it almost reflects in the pacing too. As the Persona series progresses through 4 and 5, the tutorials seem to get longer and longer with more dialogue and hand-holding necessary before you get into the primary loop of the game. I don't know how it was in the original, but in Reload, it's like they can't wait for you to figure it out on your own. After going into Tartarus one time, they kind of just leave you to your own devices, and the classic Persona loop starts before you even realize, which seems like a very intentional design choice which feeds into the story and makes the experience more authentic. Characters constantly ask how you're settling in since you're a new student and if you've got the hang of things, if things are difficult, because after showing you the main area of the games, they kind of just leave you to do the discovering yourself. I'm already well accustomed with the modern Persona game loop, so it was easy for me to settle in and appreciate the shortened yapathons that the other games normalized. But for new players, this can be a bit overwhelming, and I just think it's a nice gesture to connect the player with the world a bit more. So far, I'm really loving the stories and the characters, except this nigga. He's gotta be the most annoying character in Persona history. He's so weird. The very first time you meet him, he's like, yo, I seen you with Takaba. Which makes sense. I mean, if you see one of the new kids with a super popular kid, guy or girl, you're gonna be a little curious. But then he comes up to you again, asking about this fucking girl. And then again, till you find out he's a confidant. And I hung out with him because, you know, I want to level up the confident, of course. And he actually doesn't seem too bad. He's actually a pretty chill guy. And then he starts talking about asking out the teacher, which is crazy. But, you know, more power to him. I did the same thing in Persona 5. But he just gets more and more annoying again. All he talks about is women. I can't stand people like this. You don't have anything better to do? You ain't got no hobbies? No responsibilities? Like, shit irks my nerves. Other than him, though, the characters are great. And the voice acting in this game is amazing. I'm playing with the English voices, of course, and I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like the quality of English voice acting in games has really improved a lot in the last few years, especially for the anime-inspired ones. While there are some that talk in a typical I'm yelling into the void anime voice, some of these characters sound like they're having a real conversation, like they're receiving active feedback. Whatever they're doing to get that effect, it's working, and we need more of that.
Don't care for seafood? They also serve ground beef.
This was the part I was the most worried about going in. From what I heard, a lot of the appeal of the original Persona 3 for people that aren't 30 and above is that it gives a lot more challenge for people who are more accustomed to the combat of Persona 5. But what I'm the most happy about is they fixed my main problem with the baton pass in Persona 5. In Persona 5 Royal, if you dealt damage to an enemy in their weakness category, you gained access to the one more mechanic, which allows you to attack again or do a baton pass. But doing the baton pass would give the person attacking next a stat boost, and in some cases, depending on your loadout, giving you SP and healing you slightly. Entirely broken, and makes the game a cakewalk for every dungeon after the first, and honestly including the first, if you know what you're doing. Persona 3 Reload uses the baton pass mechanic, changing the name to Shift, and removing all the stat buffs that you get, simply allowing you to switch to a new character and attack again. The presence of the switch mechanic does make it easier, but it's not broken to the extent it was in P5R, and the balancing of the game is saved because of it. They also made a great new change to the super abilities. In Persona 5 Royal, they added these super moves that weren't present before, which required you to have specific members in the party together. The ability to do these moves would kind of just activate randomly. There's probably some science behind it, but it's not important enough to educate myself about, because if the fight lasts longer than a minute, you will get that super move. In Persona 3, it's a lot better explained, and you have to be slightly more intentional about proccing it. It's explained in universe as the heightening of emotions during a fight. And since everyone fights different things make them emotional, therefore filling up the meter. So when Takaba heals, her super meter goes up. When Mami gives status elements, her super meter goes up. And all the other party members have their specific triggers. Doing basic stuff also increases the meter, but not to the same level as doing specific tasks. I really like this change and adds yet another layer to combat. So if you're bored with this game's combat, that's a skill issue. Other than that, the combat is the same as it's always been, with new flashy menus that are somehow less readable than Persona 5's. They look cool though, and the animations they play are fire as fuck. I may not have played the original Persona 3 games, but I've listened to the soundtrack hundreds of times. I'm constantly interlocked in a constant inner battle deciding if I like 3 or 4 soundtrack better. 3 has so many bangers, it's so groovy, and really appeases to the nigga in me. Like, listen to this. How and why did they strip all of the soul out of this track? The original is punchy and dynamic. It speaks to my soul. This doesn't hit. Why did they gentrify the music? And don't get me wrong, there are some bangers, and the new singer they brought for this game is good. Really, really good. The new songs they wrote specifically for her are straight up majestic. Like the song that plays when you walk around the town at night. Oh my god, bro. I need that on Spotify right now. But the songs they redid from the original don't have the same oomph that they did before. You can really tell that they were made for a different singer. And this would be a non-issue if I hadn't listened to the original soundtrack so extensively, but I did, and it's a noticeable difference. Enough to bother. They honestly could have just put the old songs in and not changed them. Maybe touched up the beats a little bit, but the vocals were fine. They don't sound antiquated or anything like that. But it is what it is. There's no changing it. Overall, the music is still good and I'm loving it. I mean, it's Persona. They're always gonna have bangers. So far, I'm loving this game. And it was everything I expected it to be. I'm gonna continue to enjoy the game, and maybe I'll make another video on it if my opinions change or evolve after I finish it. Let me know what you thought of this video in the comments below. Leave a like if you think Best Girl is the only right and acceptable answer. Take it easy, and as usual, have a good one.
Two hands meet at zenith, nothing comes between us, dancing like ballerinas under the moonlight all night long.